Today we're taking on Jurassic Coast, a rolling course with a decisive KOM that will make or break your race. In this race recon, we will break down each segment, call out where the race will likely break apart, and ultimately how to save your legs for that final sprint finish. Let's check it out. Jurassic Coast runs 19.5 kilometers with 212 meters of climbing. Don't let the distance fool you, however. This is a short, intense course that demands sharp efforts at the KOM and enough left in the tank for a draggy sprint to the finish. You'll face three major features: fast opening flats, the brutal Titans Grove KOM, and a downhill to flat run-in to one of the trickiest sprints in Zwift. Riders will take a right-hand turn straight out of the pens to a flat road that descends just ever slightly into Titans Grove. The pack will have some pretty serious speed as the bunch makes its way past the Titans Grove welcome sign. Titans Grove itself starts with a fairly steep roller, hitting nearly 6%, a sign of the punchy pain to come. The best way to approach these rollers is to spin up your legs just before the elevation hits. That way your wattage spikes as your avatar begins to climb the ascents. And from there, you can ease over the top through the downhill. That's when gravity is your friend. Most of these early S's are draftable, even with a long false flat before a few more quick punches, a prelude to the longer, more difficult climbs just around the bend. Peaking at a constant 5.5% gradient, you can somewhat draft this. Just know the pack will begin to string out as strong riders test the legs of pack. Continue to use momentum over these punches as you approach the most difficult pre-KOM section, which contains switchbacks that hit gradients of over 8%. I recommend doing just enough to stay with the bunch within this switchback section because you want to save your matches for the upcoming KOM section, and there's a very steep descent which will give the group plenty of momentum to scoop up any flyers that push the pace and ended up alone. This is also a very important recovery point because the Titans Grove KOM is just around the corner. Tailgun here and use the snowball effect to flow to the front of the group once the KOM begins. Just know that there is a slight kick before the green line, which will slow things down. As a whole, the Titans Grove KOM reverse is a draftable climb and shorter than climbing from the other side of the mountain, with a length of 0.89 kilometers, an elevation gain of about 40 meters. You'll be looking at an average gradient of 4.4%. The pace will be uncomfortable. Being that you're over 9 miles from the finish line, this is not the time to be dropped by the group. Do everything in your power to stay with the bunch and be very careful of slowly letting the group pull away because the pack tends to pick up the pace as you approach the KOM banner. Remember, there's plenty of time to rest once you've pushed over the top, being that the course's gradient is primarily downhill as you wind towards the coast. Don't be afraid to burn matches if you need to. Additionally, there is a power-up offered at the top of this KOM, so if you are gapped from the group, use that power-up to try and get back on. It could save your race. If you do have good positioning, hold on to the power-up on what is the longest recovery section of the course. Just make sure you stay on the pedals until you reach the first switchback of the descent. The KOM descent itself is not nearly as steep as the climb we just made. Experience gradients of just under 3%. A large group's momentum will continue to scoop up flyers as some dinosaurs begin to come into view. Float near the back of the pack, so when the gradients do begin to kick up again, you'll be able to use the pack's momentum to chase. A sleepy group could lead to splits when exiting Titans Grove, especially when a long false flat comes into view. This is draftable and stays under 4%, but the 7 steep undulations you'll experience will keep things animated. Similar to the entrance, spin your legs up before you hit the red gradients, and keep in mind that if you want to attack, there is another long descent that will favor the pack. Smart riders will be greatly rewarded for efficiently riding this section. When exiting the grove, the minus 4% gradients will lead you to the coast, working your way past a roundabout, but continue to stick with the group and let flyers burn the legs. They will have a very difficult time keeping the pack away when met with the rolling coast. One's recovery will come to an end as you pass over the bridge leading into Evergreen Coast. The road will remain largely flat until you pass Mr. Crink's Crab Shack. Expect the group to begin stretching as 2 long, easy rollers are ridden, especially if any flyers remain out front. Approaching a campsite will signal a couple of 3 to 4% climbs that are split with a descent that will allow a nice recovery opportunity for dropping down into a second power-up and sprint point. The second climb is long enough for an elevation profile to appear, but don't let that excite you since it's mostly under 3% and highly draftable. When dropping down to the woodland sprint reverse, be reminded that the green sprint line starts before the descent, leaving the opportunity to start in the back of the pack and make your way to the front before hitting the cobbles and increased rolling resistant. This timing is important if you're racing a format where winning the sprint segment is rewarded. Otherwise, simply rest your legs for the final. If you're feeling strong, you can hold your preferred power up through the banner, though using one just before the banner will allow you to have an easier time hitting the last true crux of the race, a light climb that kicks up over 4% at the very end. Expect the pace to remain high as you pass over the top of this climb, as riders that do not want a sprint finish may try a last-minute attack to break the group. Truthfully, after this kick, the course is the flattest of the race, so it'll be extremely difficult for an attack to stick, but that will likely not stop the group from trying, especially if riders are tired of a lack of animation. As you approach the fishing village that houses the Sasquatch Sprint Reverse, a steep downhill will offer you a bit of respite for what is likely to be a long and difficult sprint. One is best suited to stay in the back of the pack as you work your way over 3 bridges with increased rolling resistance. Attacks may come on or just before the 3rd bridge as the road dips slightly along 2 houses before ramping up on a left-hander. Make your move through the pack on this downhill because the final 2% gradient will reward anyone who's using the group's momentum to launch in this section. Failure to get up to power before the gradient increase will result in forfeiting a podium. Make sure your gearing is prepared beforehand and push all the way through the line. You'll be surprised just how easy it is to catch riders that were not expecting or prepared for an uphill sprint. With cycling gear changing so often on Zwift, the best advice I can give is to go aero. Otherwise, check out Zwifter Bikes or Zwift Insider for the fastest current setup. When it comes to power-ups, keep in mind that there's 2 banners, one at the top of the KOM and the second, the sprint segment before the finish. An arrow or draft is perfect for staying with the group or the final sprint. The anvil should be used on a descent, either post-KOM, before the final sprint banner, or before the final sprint. The burrito is flexible, but most efficient if you're trying to make an early attack in the final sprint. As for the feather, the final sprint finish that's uphill, or staying with the group on one of the rolling S's, is ideal. For the invisibility, anywhere that you would like to make an attack, just know that if it's before the finish line, it won't work within 400 meters. And then finally, if the steamroller is chosen, it can be used on the bridges before the finish or the cobbles of the sprint. And that's your race recon for Jurassic Coast. I hope you enjoyed, and I truly hope it'll help you race to the best of your ability. If you'd like to see me race this, that video should be up in the next 48 hours. If there's anything I missed, let me know down below in the comments. If you did enjoy, please consider liking the video and subscribing, or even throwing in some hype. As always, ride hard, ride smart, and bonk beautifully.